Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, GCU students, alumni, and fellow educators. Welcome to episode 40 of the Designing with Love podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Catrina Mitchum, the founder of Catrina Mitchum Learning Design. Welcome, Dr. Mitchum.
Jackie, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad we got to connect on Podmatch and we have an opportunity to do this interview today and really get some good insight from you with your company that you have and then also to be able to help my students who may want to go into something similar to that. That's great. Wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my company is Catrina Mitchum Learning Design. I've been in business for almost 3 years, and I'm a recovering academic is what I call myself. I was in higher ed. I still adjunct actually, but I was in higher ed. I think I taught my first class in 2008. And I taught my first online class in 2009. And so we've come a really long way since then.
Yes, absolutely.
But, I started at a time when my community college didn't have instructional designers because it was not common and also not affordable to have them to work with you. And so I kind of became an instructional designer because I wanted to teach online. I taught online only from 2010 all the way up until now. And so in order to do it well, I studied instructional design all the way through because I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it right. And because I knew it was different from teaching in person.
Right. So in essence, you kind of became an accidental instructional designer. You didn't plan on it, but it just...
Yeah.
was there and you knew that that was something you needed to do. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's kind of how it kind of fell on my lap too. And I was like, oh, is this what instructional design is? I think it was something I knew I always wanted to do, but I didn't know there was a name for it. So it's interesting how we stumble upon it and don't realize it. Or those that are maybe teaching or doing something similar, they are doing it and they don't realize it. Because I have a student that's in my program right now, and she's like, I was doing it for a while and just didn't realize it. So it's interesting how we stumble upon it and realize, oh, the light bulb moment happens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's neat. Wow, that's cool. And so what do you think are the top 5 mistakes that course creators make, because your website does such a good job of kind of outlining what should occur, but what do you think are the top 5 mistakes that they make?
The number one is a focus on content first. And having done instructional design in higher ed before I got out, I would say that's also a problem in higher education too, is assuming that if I give them the information, they will learn it and they will know it and they will be able to do it without anything else. There are so many courses out there that are just video vaults and content dumps. And, we all know, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing that's not actually how learning works. So yeah, I would say that's the number one. The number 2 is not actually getting feedback. So
that's a big one.
When you're selling courses is different than in higher education and is different than having to do it for work. And a lot of times people focus too heavily on getting testimonials or just, positive reviews so that they can use them in their marketing and sales. But they don't often collect the feedback that is so necessary to actually making changes to the course so that it is successful the second time around or the third time around or however many times around they're going at that point. They just don't think to get the feedback. I am constantly recommending to focus on feedback first and then say, could I use some of this in my marketing, right? Because feedback should be both the positive and the negative things. And a lot of times there's really good gems about the positive experiences that people had. But focusing on it as feedback before focusing on it as a testimonial would go a really long way.
Wow, that's true. It's almost like they're skipping, not because I hear a lot with the ADDIE model that's used quite often, that people want to skip analysis, right, and go right into design. And then they skip the E part at the end, the evaluation, and they're just like, okay, let's roll out this course and then let's just let it go and not do any evaluation. And so it almost feels like those bookends are so important, but they just want to throw them away and just do what's in the middle and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a danger to that, because no evaluation means you don't know what worked and what didn't and what you need to improve, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that, bringing up ADDIE, that is actually the third one that I was going to mention is so you would call it validation,
right?
in the course creation industry, but they don't get that validation early on. Like, there's no asking of, hey, if I was going to sell a course on this, or this, what would you be interested in? Or even things like writing out descriptions of what's going to be in there, or creating goals. So many courses don't have goals, which is probably the fourth one, but I'm going to tie it in with the third one because they're not using, if they do have goals, they're not using them to validate the course before they start building things.
Oh, wow.
Right? They're not asking, like, if you took a course on digital marketing, would improving your email click-through rate be something that you would want to work toward as a goal? Right? They're not asking those very specific, concrete outcomes types of questions. And I feel like it's really an opportunity. Like, they have such a great opportunity to build a course that people actually want, instead of having students feel like the course is kind of thrusted on them, like can happen in higher education, where we often design things based on what we think they need to know instead of what their goals are. The course creation industry is really this unique opportunity to build something based on the changes that people want to make and the goals that they come with to that space.
So important, right? Kind of figuring out what's almost like a backwards design, right? Where you figure out what are the outcomes, what are the goals of what the learner wants, and then you build the course from there and you figure out what those are. And so that's so important. Yeah.
That's I take them through backwards design. My clients, I take them through backwards design. I don't call it that.
Right.
A lot of the shifting from instructional design in spaces where it's a known and expected kind of language, right?
Right.
Into a space where I've had to do some yelling about how important course design is. And the people that hear me and understand me the most are the people that have built a course that didn't do well. I do a lot of course audits because they come to me and they say, I built this thing and I really thought people were going to love it, and they can't even get past the first module.
Oh, wow. That's sad. Oh,
yeah. And so that actually brings me to number 5. And that's because there's no getting started or start here or like cohesive kind of, this is how the course works. Like, sometimes there's a welcome video, but it's not really a navigation / take your time / this is how much time things are going to take. Like, all of the things that, I got used to putting into a course in higher education, like that start here module. That's so important. It's very difficult to find in the course creation industry. Even the very first course I bought on, it was supposed to help me get out of higher education. And it was terrible. There was no clear learning path. There was the modules had there were no stepping stones between things. There was no transparency in why this built on that. And and there was no getting started space at all. Like I just started clicking on like the module in the upper left-hand corner because that seemed like maybe it was the place to start, but it wasn't the place. It wasn't the place to start.
So it wasn't logical in any logical order, and it almost felt like a hodgepodge of different elements put together, right? But no sequence to it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't a learning journey. It was just a dump of information.
Oh gosh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then if the learners don't know where to start and how to continue, right? And okay, I'm building upon something and learning as I go. And and I know what my end goal is. Yeah. If there's no clear path, that leaves them confused more than ever, right? Than when they started. Yeah. That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for me, it brought clarity because I was like, oh, this is a gap.
Right. This is something I can actually help others to be able to do a better job at course creation. And so you saw a need, you saw that opportunity of being able to fulfill that and make courses better. Yeah. I love that. That's a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that and to make these courses better. So no matter what someone wants to learn, they can have that clear path and that they're going to be successful with that. And the course is going to be successful too for all the learners. So that's important. Yeah. Because I believe instructional design in any type of realm or course development, it's supposed to help people reach their goals and help them learn something that they didn't know before and be able to apply that to their lives and their careers. So it's definitely the type of industry and the type of education is so giving as an industry as a whole. So it's really nice to have that opportunity to change lives in so many great ways. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. So how do you suggest that course creators move from that one-on-one to more group content without losing the personal touch?
My answer to this question is always hybrid.
Yes.
As a subject matter expert, right? They know the sticky points. They know the places where people that they work with one-on-one get stuck.
Right.
They also know the places where as they're working with folks one-on-one, they're saying the same thing over and over on repeat and walking them through the same questions and activities and in general, not having to change what they're doing very much from person to person in similar sessions. Those are the things that can start to live in a course. And then the places where it's really sticky, that's the place where you do the one-on-one still until you figure out. And sometimes you won't, right? Sometimes there's just learning, as you know, Jackie, learning needs to be just challenging enough in order for it to feel worthwhile, in order for us to actually learn the thing.
Right.
And so sometimes that one-on-one piece, it's that thing that needs to be just challenging enough, and you need another person to help you through it. So that my recommendation is always to do hybrid, and then to start with the things that go on repeat.
Yeah.
As the places where you start to not evergreen, but kind of things that are repeatable from person to person.
Right. That's so true. Looking for those areas where there maybe more clarity is needed, because you find that students or learners will struggle in certain areas, and you can kind of anticipate that, or just after time you see, okay, they're struggling with this part. I think we need to clarify it. Yeah. Without giving it away, right? We don't want to give away all of it. We want to create some challenges at the same time, but not challenge them so much that they stumble upon it and they can't get past the next module, right? So we want to So it's a balance.
We want to remove the barriers that don't need to be there, right? Like some barriers are things that they need to overcome to learn the thing, but some are just barriers because we thought it was a good thing to do, or we forgot to caption our videos, or whatever else we accidentally did that created these artificial barriers that don't actually need to be there for learning to happen.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, because we don't, the last thing we want to do is have cognitive overload and then make them frustrated. And then they're like, forget it, I'm going to give up and just I'm not going to, do this anymore. And especially if they paid for the course, I would imagine that's got to be more frustrating when they were like, wait, I can't even complete this. And, I'll just take my loss. That's when it's not a good thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And so many people, like when I'm in networking groups and I talk about what I'm doing, I get so many nods when I talk about courses that they have put on the digital shelf and are collecting dust because everybody has them, because there's that many terribly designed courses in the course creation industry, unfortunately.
Wow. So they just kind of sit there and don't really serve any purpose, right? They're just there, just taking up digital space.
Yeah. Basically making somebody have to pay $100 a month for Kajabi, basically.
Wow. Yeah. That's not cheap.
No.
Yeah. That's tough. And especially for an organization that's their lifeblood, right? And that's what they rely on. And then having to shell out that extra money, that's not a good return on investment or anything. Yeah. That's true. Wow. So as we know, AI technology is continuing to make waves. And of course, it's in education, it's in instructional design. I use it every day. It's an amazing thing, but then there's also always the downside to everything when it comes to technology. So are there any specific AI technology tools that you find helpful as you're working with clients to use during the course creation process? Hello, I have some exciting news to share with all of my listeners. There is a feature called Fan Mail. What this allows you to do is send me a text message anytime during the episode. There's a link located at the top of the description in each episode, and it says Send Jackie a Text Message. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to send me a message letting me know what you thought about the episode and if you have any ideas for future episode content as well. I look forward to seeing your text messages. Thank you.
Yeah, I am a Claude gal. So I prefer Claude for a variety of reasons. But I like being able to build the projects, and I just feel like it gives better responses.
That's good.
I also I try to make my services accessible. And so I do sometimes have things that are more like guidebook. And so when I have activities in there, I do try to give AI prompts to help the people that buy it, so that if they don't feel like they need me, I'm like replacing myself. We can't do that. I have tried to get it to act like an instructional designer, and it's not a great output no matter which AI tool I use.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah. Like, also they don't know what they need. And so the AI doesn't know that either.
Right. That's true.
But I will often use it to get prompts to give folks. Like, this is the goal of the activity. How can I help someone use any AI tool to kind of get something so that they're not kind of staring at the blank page, right? Because that can be scary. My background is in writing. And so any kind of blank page is scary to a lot of people. I also, they've been using AI for a while, but I like Adobe Premiere Pro for video editing. The ability to remove all of the pauses and the speech to text for captioning is more on point than any tool that I've seen. The only thing it spells wrong is my name because it insists that my name should be spelled with a K.
Instead of a C, yeah.
Instead of a C.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say those are my two top, daily AI tools.
That's great.
I also really like Perplexity for if I'm having to fill in some gaps in some places with research. I feel like Perplexity is a really good tool for that too.
Wow, that's great. I'll have to check out Adobe Premiere Pro. It's been a while since I've used it, and so I'll have to check it out with the AI tools that are incorporated in it, because Adobe has done such a great job of integrating in there. Like when they first came out with Firefly, I had to check that out. I was like, ooh, image creation, this is neat. And some of my students have been mentioning Adobe Express and how they use that with their students, and it has AI built in there too. So it seems like they've done a good job of making it to where it's integrated and it doesn't feel like it's out of place, so that it's in good places.
Absolutely doesn't.
Yeah.
I would say from a so not an instructional design perspective, but if you're going to try to help course creators and go into business for yourself, either as a freelancer or solo proprietor or whatever it happens to be, I use Zapier a lot for automations, and I was using it before they integrated AI, and that tool doesn't always call the thing that is the trigger or the result the same as all the other tools it's integrated with. And so it could sometimes be like a lot of trial and error to figure out what to call something. But their AI integration has made that way easier.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything we can do to help with those mundane tasks, right, that we used to do, and automate some of those things, that I think that's where AI can really do a great job of that. And we in curriculum development, we use it to just come up with ideas for different for like topics, objectives.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in program design, we come up with topics, but we use it to come up with objectives. And we also take the course description, pull that into AI and say, based on this, can you come up with some different assignments and things like that? So it's good at that, because as you know, like you said earlier, subject matter experts, if they know what they want, but it's just getting to that outcome, right, of figuring out how to do that and how to be able to do it in authentic ways so that the learner feels like they have that authentic experience, and that it's not just, I have to write this essay or I have to, because writing is important, as we know, but at the same time, giving them that real world application is so important. So being able to do that and help them not to feel like they have to go to AI all the time and feel like they can, have that experience that makes it more authentic than feeling like it's busy work, because that's definitely not something we want.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the case, a lot of, teaching is hard, right? Because we are excited about the thing that we're teaching. Right. And so it can be difficult to make sure that we're tying it into direct real world applications, no matter what industry you're in. That matters. It matters to adults especially, but I would even argue it matters to kids.
Right. That's so true. Yeah, because when I think about instructional design and how diverse it is, you can go into corporate, higher ed, K through 12, military, nonprofit, and you think of all of those different industries and how they have similarities, but they also have differences too. If you're thinking of government or military, their processes are different, right? And so
very different.
That I think is so important too. So so it's very interesting when you kind of look at the different ways that instructional designers can embed themselves in different areas. And so it's very interesting for sure. Yeah, that's cool. And so the last question is about most of my listeners are students, but I do have some others that are novice instructional designers. But I always like to ask, what are some tips and advice that you can share with those that are currently in the master's program in instructional design at Grand Canyon University?
I would say, if you haven't taught a class, also teach a class. Because there's a lot of value in being able to see kind of the whole trajectory of a course. It doesn't have to be a course you designed either. There's a lot of value in teaching a course that you didn't design. But being able to see every phase and step and stage of the process, including the delivery of it, right? The teachers often do the delivery of the online course, and having that delivery experience will go a really long way in being able to work with subject matter experts in a way where you actually get somewhere. I mean, I've heard you hear horror stories, right? About
yes,
subject matter experts who, don't want to listen and they don't understand, and putting yourself into that teaching seat can help you better understand where they're coming from. So that would probably be my first piece of advice. I also feel like you don't need to limit yourself to the industries that people are already working in, right? Nobody thought that I was that I was going to leave higher education and start helping people that sell courses for a living. Because there are not a lot of instructional designers out there doing what I'm doing right now. A lot of the courses that are out there, that have been out there for a long time on how to create a course, are actually designed and developed by marketers.
Oh,
so
wow.
So I mean, that's why we're in the situation, where we're in. Right. And I don't think that people do it from a place of, trying to trick others. I think that even from personal experience, if you're not taught to be a teacher or you're not taught to be a curriculum developer, then you tend to try to teach people in the ways that you've been taught.
Yes.
And so they're mimicking what their previous experiences are, even if they weren't great, because they don't know what else to do.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I've noticed that with subject matter experts quite a bit. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Or they'll pick a textbook for a course because that's what they had, or they had something similar to it. And I'm like, but is this really the best textbook for the course? And then they want to write the course around the textbook. And I'm like, wait a minute. But if the textbook, because sometimes we lose rights to the textbook as an institution, if the textbook goes away, is the course still valuable? Can you still teach it with what's in there? And can the students still do the assignment? And then when I ask them that question, they're like, oh, no, not really. And I'm like, okay, then you shouldn't build a course around a textbook. It should just be there to help them, further learn the information, but it should never be built around it. And some of them don't realize that until you ask them that question. And then they're like, oh, I see now. Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Folks are often shocked because the number one thing people do is create a bunch of content without anything else, right? And so they're often shocked when I tell them to identify the actions first. Like, what are the things that we're having them do? And then only pull in the content that's going to support those actions and activities so that they can actually reach the goals.
Yeah.
Because information without application is useless.
Absolutely. That is so true. Yeah. I love that. Great. And I love the part you mentioned about teaching too, because I've been an instructional designer for 14 years, going on 15 now. I think, at the end of the year, it'll be 15 years. But then I've only been an instructor in teaching the instructional design courses for 3 years. So it's like, wow, it took me a while to get into that because where I've been working, I kept trying and then I wasn't getting in. And then they finally, 5 years ago, they started offering the instructional design program because I was looking elsewhere and they wanted someone, if I was going to teach at a master's level, they wanted me to have a doctorate. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go back to school again to do that. And, but it was kind of interesting. And then they had that and they're like, oh, we'll apply for the position. And I'm like, all right, I'll apply. And so I agree. It's made me a better instructional designer, being able to teach and see how, even though I don't get to work on the instructional design courses, I work in another college, but being able to see that process, because I kept hearing the same things over and over again from instructors, like students don't know how to write very well and they don't know how to do these different things. And I was so shocked by that. And I was like, really? That just seems weird. How would they be able to get into a master's program and take master's level courses without knowing how to write well? That just blew my mind. But then when I started teaching the courses, I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what they're talking about now. So it just really opens up your eyes to that. And then you get to kind of validate what they've been telling you all along. So yeah, it's amazing.
Also, I'm going to just point this out. The discipline of writing studies their own teaching. And so going and looking at all of the research, or don't do all the research, it's been decades and decades, but looking at the research that's done in writing studies and incorporating that into every single class would probably be really useful.
That's a good idea. I love that. Yeah.
Maybe not in the course creation industry, but just like in higher education.
Right.
Because most of the time when there's complaints about students not knowing how to write, it's because they haven't been taught how to write in that discipline. And so if you take what we know about the teaching of writing and pull it into your own discipline, and there's a whole area called writing across the disciplines and writing in the disciplines, and starting to pull those things in can help students learn how to write in your particular discipline.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll have to pass that along because yeah, you're right. Different disciplines do need to write differently because a lot of what I work on is the social sciences areas, so counseling, social work, psychology, and so they do have to have some writing in there, but it's mostly like case notes and things like that. But it's very much case study heavy, and then they have to analyze it, write about it, things like that. So, but it's interesting because in counseling, they want them to always write an APA. And I'm like, okay, interesting. But will they write an APA out in the field? And when they're in their agency, probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's very interesting how they want to still have that academic setting of it. Yeah. And I'm like, that's interesting. So yeah, that's so true. Being able to write in that, what that industry writes in, being able to replicate that as much as you can. Yeah, that's so important.
My favorite example is, you mentioned the military earlier. My favorite example is memos, because memos in the military look very, very different than memos in the business world. And so really, it really just does depend on the area that you're trying to write in and having to learn what those expectations are.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, the government is different than business in so many ways. Yeah, they're writing for a different purpose, right? So it's different. It has to be different in that aspect. That's true. Wow. Yeah, you learn different industries. And you're like, oh yeah, that's not quite the same, and so you can't treat it as a one size fits all or anything like that.
No. Nope.
Yeah, that's true, and that's one of the myths I shared in the episode that'll come after this about adult learning is that learning cannot be a one size fits all for adults. We can't assume that every adult knows this information. And so I have to remind SMEs of that too. Like, can we really assume that they know this already? And because adults come in at different levels, and it's so true.
Yeah. That's what makes it both challenging and fun.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Yeah. You're always kept on your toes when it comes to this industry, and no matter what type of work you do, it's definitely keeps you active, and job security. I always say that it's job security. Yeah. Absolutely.
And creativity. I feel like, sometimes you have to be so creative to get something to work the way that your subject matter expert wants it to work, based on what they have access to and don't have access to. And so I find it, thinking about the challenges as ways to be creative goes a long way.
Absolutely. Right. And then bringing their vision to life, right? So they have this idea of what they want. They just don't know how to bring it to life. And so we're there to help bring it to life in the most meaningful way so that it's learner-centered. And that's so important to make it learner-centered. Yeah, that's something I always remind the subject matter experts about. I'm like, you have to make sure it's centered on the learner, and that it's not just some wish list that we have, but that it really is going to help them. Yeah. That's great. Wonderful. Was there anything else you wanted to share with my listeners today that you can think of?
I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did. We did a good job covering quite a bit. So I appreciate your time and your expertise, Catrina, and it's wonderful. I know my listeners will get so much knowledge out of this, and they'll be able to really know that they can jump into this career no matter what area they go into. And it takes time, but I think with that passion and that go-to attitude, I know that a lot of my listeners will be able to go into the field and feel like they can really make a difference and help learners advance their knowledge and their skills as well. So it's exciting.
That's why we're all here.
Yes, exactly. I don't think instructional design is going anywhere anytime soon. If anything, it's going to keep advancing and growing and gaining popularity, because whenever people ask me what I do for a living, it's interesting because I say instructional design, and I think it's still kind of new to people. They don't know what that is, and they'll say, "What is that?" And so when I tell them what it is, and then they go, they have the aha moment, like, "Oh, that's what that is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it is." So it's exciting to help people even learn what the field is about. So yeah, it's exciting. And when they see that you're excited and you know your work and you have a passion for it, it just makes it even better. So it's exciting. Great. Well, thank you so much again for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.